Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Yoruus speaking and welcome to the summary video for multiplayer game number 105. As usual, spoiler alert, if you do not want to know how the game went, stop watching right now and go to the first position of the playlist. The link should be somewhere around in here. Okay, you have been warned. If you want to know how the game went, so you can decide if you want to watch the game or not, or you just watch the game and want to hear me theorycraft a little bit, then I invite you to watch this video. So this is a free-for-all 6-player game played on 13 October on Twitch. So the Twitch chat is on, the TeamSpeak is on, and I'm playing with Mr. Singh playing as Indonesia, Babayeru playing as USA, Matas playing as Japan, Munch Dead Box playing as France, and Apoc playing as Korea. All of the players in this game you already probably know from my previous games, except the Munch Dead Box. So all of them are quite strong. The only wild card in this game is Munch Dead Box, since I do not know what to expect from him. The civs are quite strong, especially Apoc on Korea. Wow, Korea is just so amazing late game. It's pure craziness. But I rolled Spain. I was like, since we had a chat on TeamSpeak, and there was like, of course, Yoruus probably is gonna get Spain. And yes, Yoruus got Spain. Now Spain is a little bit tricky, Civ, because if you happen to find a wonder first, you have an amazingly strong early game, really amazing. You just go population 2, you buy a settler, you have a very fast second city, you can then buy a worker most probably, or it's just pure craziness. You have such a huge head start, it's amazing, but you have to find a wonder. Now if you don't find wonder first, or you don't find wonders at all, then Spain is basically a totally normal civ. Actually a very mediocre civ, because you don't really have any bonuses, right? If you don't have wonders, you don't have bonuses. Maybe you'll find a wonder later on, but later on like 100G is not that great. So it's a very luck based civ. But I was super happy I got them, and my starting location looked very well, I gotta say. Two citrus, coast, river, 2 luxuries already. Not that bad. I mean, like, citrus is quite cool, though it's not hammer strong, but it's still 3 food, so you can grow in 4 turns and hope for horses basically later on. So I didn't move, I just planted where I am, and I hoped for, well, basically I hope to find a lot of wonders. And sadly, I didn't find any wonders first, but it's not that bad. Like, there is a wonder in here, Zero de Potosi, that I would love to get, but I kinda knew I can't really get there fast enough, especially that I had a little bit of barbarian problems, so I wanted to grow my capital a bit, I need to get an archer, and so on. But still, the land was quite amazing. I mean, like, I had spots for 5 cities. Well, theoretically 4 would be the best, but I decided to went off with tradition this time, no experimentation. So go tradition and plant 5 cities. 2 cities, basically a city in there on a mountain, 3 cities on the mountain plus my capital with the possibility of NC, and a 5th city somewhere around in here, just because it's a very cool spot with a lot of fish. I happened to get Desert Pantheon, surprisingly. Of course, I did not get Petra later on. Somebody actually did build Petra, but I was super happy with the Desert Pantheon, because I had quite nice desert amount. Like, capital was 1, 2, 3, at least 4, even plus 5 fate, and only planning the city in here would be plus 6 fate. So plus 6 fate should guarantee myself getting a religion, which is quite cool. And my closest neighbor was France. For a second there, I thought we are like, when we were scouting, I thought like, we're on an island basically. But it happened like, yes, we're on sort of an island, because we're connected to the rest of the land by 1 tile passage, with a city-state on it. So very isolated start. Theoretically in the early game I should be worried only about France. Now I set up those cities in quite good defensive spots, so I wasn't really worried that much, especially I had some gold. I found 2 wonders though as a second person, but still 200G is quite nice. That gave me a little bit boost into gold that I was able to buy tiles. You can see me buying off Citrus of France, and I also managed to buy in here some stuff. Later on, excuse me, I didn't have the gold to actually upgrade archers into composites, but France never really get any indication that he would like to attack me in any way, shape or form. He didn't want to trade luxuries with me early game. He didn't want to get the declaration of friendship because he said that I planted on his face. While seeing my land, of course, I didn't have much choice. You could say the same to him. Basically, this city is so much farther from his capital than actually my city is from my capital. But let's not theorycrat about that. You know how this goes. Basically, I set up my 5 cities. And since I only had France to worry about, I decided to go absolutely, totally full eco mode. I did a little bit of experimentation, but this is turn 100. As usual, I try to show off in those summaries turn 100 to see, basically to have a comparison between different games, how my empire looks at turn 100. I treat turn 100 as a benchmark, basically about how much tech you have. So in this instance, my tech was not that great at turn 100, but I did invest into piety, and I actually delayed Renaissance by a bit. I didn't even think by one social policy, because surprisingly I was able to get pagodas. So I was buying pagodas in my cities. I had the religion, and I had quite a lot of faith income. And as I suspected, France had no intention of attacking me, so I was like slowly growing up. Now on the other side of the planet, the situation was quite interesting. Basically, you can see my mouse pointer. Yes, you can see my mouse pointer. So there's Babayeru, USA, with a huge 3 cities on an inland sea. And like, surprisingly enough, Babayeru was the leader of this game, had the top science, I believe top hammers for quite a long time. He was doing simply just great. Now Epoch is in here, playing as Korea. Now I thought like, okay, it's quite fun because there's 2 cities on one side of that land and 2 cities on this side of the land, so he cannot really connect between those 2 cities. But later on he just decided to take the city-state, so he had a canal city. Now Matas is behind Babayeru, but he's not on coast, at least not on my part of the coast. Basically on my part of the coast is Epoch, but he probably was worried much more about Mr. Singh around in here, who as usual said, I'm doing so bad, blah 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 blah, and later on he just booms with hammers and suddenly goes out to crazy gold stuff and fights everybody. But that's Mr. Singh, you gotta get used to it. He never tells the truth on TeamSpeak, at least most of the time. But yeah, that's diplomacy, I guess. Sneaky mind games. So there's Mr. Singh. Now one problem for me was, like, I have a choice. I have 2 choices basically. Choice number 1, well, I had 3 choices in this game. Choice number 1, try to build up troops and try to attack France. But that choice was kind of spoiled because France built up Great Wall, so I decided like investing into attacking a player that I have no idea how he fights. And I definitely did not have an advantage at that point of the game with hammers, I believe. So attacking a player with Great Wall with a possibility of a failure or a huge investment into breaking a Great Wall civ, I decided that's a bad option. Another option was I could go frigates and try to build up hammers and go frigates, try to attack somebody or even try to at least defend somebody. But at this stage of the game, I didn't really know if I'm connected to Epoch. I knew there's no way way to connect from Mr. Singh into my capital, and like Mr. Singh would be the first person in my mind who would try to attack my capital with frigates. So I decided that I'm gonna risk it, and I'm not gonna go for frigates, and I'm just gonna build up, like be a little bit behind at this stage of the game, build up economy, and risking losing those two cities, because in my mind, like, it would be much more worthwhile in the long term to try to risk it and build up economy in those cities and have a chance to compete with crazy Baba Yaru in this game and Korea in the late game, that he was just booming with tech. So I decided to risk it and do not go for frigates. Like, okay, if he's gonna attack me, I'm gonna lose those two cities, then I'm gonna build up land troops and I'll try to get them back so he can't pass into my land, but he can't really get my capital. So even if I lose those two coastal cities, I'm still in 3 cities and I have an option to do something later on. Yes, that would be a huge a blow to my economy, of course, if I would lose those 2 cities, but I thought that risk is quite worth it. Surprisingly enough, though I did not have a high amount of growth in my capital, I focused a lot on culture. I focused on culture and faith in this game. So my capital was small. Basically, my cities were small. I still was managing to do quite fine science-wise. Well, theoretically quite fine. I mean, like, Baba Yaru and Apex was skyrocketing high with science, especially Baba Yaru. Baba Yaru went first to ideology. He picked freedom. Now, I managed to get the second ideology and I got order. And of course, Mr. Singh, Apex, and Matas picked autocracy. I believe they picked it on the same turn. So, like, somebody was very unlucky and, like, picked autocracy and get no extra social policies, but there was a clear indication that, of course, Mr. Singh, Apex, and Matas is gonna try to fight, and Baba Yaru tries to go for space because he has the quite enormous lead in there, and of course he's got B-70s, so he really didn't need autocracy or Brandenburg Gate to try to get healing promotion on his bombers, because basically if you get B-70s, you can get healing quite easily with, like, only the basic buildings that give experience. So he didn't have to worry about that. He still could have a quite nice upgraded bombers in this game. So the situation was also that Mr. Singh, of course, well, as I said, Apex took this canal city in here, and Mr. Singh took like 1, 2, 3 cities around this coast, those 3 city states. I was quite unhappy about it, but as I said, I didn't go for frigates, so I was really not trying to do anything with that, and I didn't invest in ships whatsoever. I was just trying to get as much economy as possible. So he took those city state and he kept a fleet of frigates in here. But except that, basically nothing happened. Everybody was like sim-sitting, 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 and sim-sitting. Nobody was really attacking anybody. Everybody was like focusing on the economy and trying to do mind games on TeamSpeak. Though still, I was quite happy with the amount of culture I have and the amount of faith I'm generating. That looked really, really cool. And I was like thinking, I got order, I got faith. I will try to aim for a space victory. So I will be able to buy 3 great engineers at the late game to bulb those last parts. Now, I want to say it again, I hope that I will time it right to get those 3 great engineers. So it's quite reluctant to buy great engineers at this point of the game, because I didn't want to lose the ability to buy it later on, even though there were quite a lot of cool wonders in here that I could possibly get. Okay, so here we are, turn 190, and I'm going to try to summarize what happened in this around this time between the previous turn, previous screenshot, and here. So as I said, Baba Yaru was crazy ahead in science. He was doing really, really great, and at some point of the game he decided to attack Apex. Of course, Apex was in a very good shape as well, but he was not really prepared that quickly to to defend, but of course he had enormous amounts of gold, he had autocracy, so he was able to buy Great War bombers. Like Baba Yetu invaded him with I guess 8 infantry and like slammed them into his city. So yes, his city was red, but of course APOC was able to defend, he didn't lose the city, and then they reached sort of a stalemate, though they were of course fighting throughout the rest of the game. Now there is a interesting situation on Mr. Singh. You will be able to hear it on TeamSpeak, because at some point of the game Mr. Singh decided to citadel uranium from APOC. Well, basically they both decided to, like, APOC decided to citadel uranium from Baba Yeru, and then Mr. Singh citadeled the same uranium from APOC. Now APOC didn't really like that, so he decided to attack Mr. Singh. He really didn't like it, so he started to fight Mr. Singh, and it was a very good thing for Baba Yeru, because he didn't have to worry too much about APOC, because now he was fighting Mr. Singh, and Mr. Singh was also fighting APOC, so there was no really a threat to Baba Yeru, who's quite an attack. He got Hubble, if I remember correctly, so he was in a very good shape, and of course he was freedom, so he could buy parts. He was in a very good shape to just win the game by space. Now I was in here on this corner of the map, and I didn't have aluminium as usual. I had only 3 aluminium, and aluminium is so darn important for the late game. So I like slowly was building up planes. I got Brandenburg Gate, so I was building up planes to have that healing bonus. So I was only building them in capital, and finally when I reached the good amount of bombers, I decided to attack France. He was absolutely not prepared. He had some infantry, some bazookas if I remember correctly, and maybe a mobile SAM or 2, but that was absolutely not enough to stop me, so he didn't really put too much resistance. I was able to take him down quite quickly, and I had the aluminium I needed. Now I had basically 2 choices right now: try to fight or try to go to space. And I sort of decided to try to do 2 things at once, though most importantly build up defense, but kinda aim for science victory. Well, initially I hoped that I can actually like go for stealth bombers and kill some people, since I've got aluminium right now, but really the amount of nukes and planes and stealth bombers and economy that Baba Yeru had was so huge that I didn't think that I can actually go anywhere, especially that like Mr. Singh had a huge fleet of missile cruisers. So I was fighting a little bit with Mr. Singh, but let's go to another screenshot. I'm not gonna talk about it in another screenshot. Okay, here we are, and I managed to, well, basically, as I said, APOC was fighting Mr. Singh. And Mr. Singh, as usual, with his evil logic, said, now I'm not gonna fight Baba Yeru because APOC attacks me, so I'm gonna defend. So basically APOC didn't have to worry about, well, not APOC, Baba Yeru didn't have to worry about anybody basically right now. Matas he killed instantly, Mr. Singh didn't count anymore, and APOC lost his capital to Baba Yeru. So I didn't really invest too much into hammers, into planes. I built up some planes, but at some point I decided, no, I can't fight this. I really cannot fight this. I need to go to space. If I really want to win this game, the only option is space. Baba Yeru has too much infrastructure, too much cities, too much stealth bombers already well upgraded, and he's so far away that I have no way to reach him. The only way I took Mr. Singh's capital is because APOC actually gave me a Blitz XCOM. So there was like my capping unit of the unit that caps cities. Now Baba Yeru was so far away from me that before I would take, well, initially I wanted to take Jakarta and like get stealth bombers in there to try and fight Baba Yeru, but of course Mr. Singh denied that idea. He took Jakarta, and I couldn't really reach Baba Yaru, so I decided no. Now I go to space. The only way I can do it is go to space. Now, I believe that Baba Yaru could have went to space much earlier than me if he would really wanted to, but he invested into war, or just didn't. He mentioned that he didn't have too much experience actually going to space with freedom. So I don't know what was his plan, but he still didn't like get parts, or was really going to space right now. He was like more fighting with APOC and Matas and investing in the XCOM and troops basically. So I thought like going for space at this point is my only real chance to win this game. I want to show you one thing. That didn't really happen. I don't think this ever happened to me in a multiplayer game. This was, I believe, the first time this happened to me, but I managed to flip one of Baba Yaru's cities thanks to tourism. This is like pure craziness. I was like, for a moment there, I was like, what's going on? I'm getting a screen where I can annex, like create a puppet of the city, and I'm like, I didn't take a single city. What the heck is going on? And it took like for, I don't know, at least 15 seconds. I was like one turning parts and trying to great engineer. Somebody could just nuke all of this. I was like staring at that screen and I didn't know what to do. It took at least 10 seconds for me to process what's going on. And finally knew what's gonna happen, and this happened. New York without a single shot fired was mine. But this is a good example how good Baba Yaru was in this game. Look at this inland sea. For a moment there, who is like, this was a swimming pool of great scientists. That was quite amazing stuff. And still, 47 population capital is just, wow, pure craziness. Anyways, I wanted to just show you what's going in here. He was trying to go to space, of course. The parts are going in there. Of course, I was not able to keep this city. He instantly retook this city, but still, this was one of the most hilarious moments in my multiplayer experience with Civ 5, flipping a city of other player with tourism. Just purely amazing. And I did manage to go to space with Spain. Was super happy. Managing to pull off this science victory was just so great. I love this comment by Big Marion. But turn 210 science when Cleftor is crying. Yes, exactly. This is a quite slow science victory compared to Cleftor's performance, but I still think I did quite well. I probably could have went much earlier into space if I would invest into just going into space. I don't know though how will that actually would end, because I did build up some stealth bombers that was quite handy in repelling Mr. Singh, taking his capital, helping APOC a little bit, like liberating his capital, taking out France. So I still believe those stealth bombers were quite needed. And the situation basically was quite favorable for me, because Baba Yaru also didn't go all into space victory, and he could probably win science victory much earlier as well. But overall, thanks to the diplomacy, I guess, and decision making, I managed to go to space before Baba Yaru. So this was amazingly cool game for me. I really like it. And that switching of New York, taking it with tourism, was just like a cherry on a pie. It was like amazing cool stuff. So thank you for the game, everybody. GG. That was a very cool game. I really like it. If you haven't watched it, I definitely invite you to watch this game. The link to the first position of the playlist is somewhere around in here. And one more time, thank you very much for watching, and best wishes. Yoruus out.